Tom Tschohl studied law at the University of Minnesota.
My intent was to become an attorney, and after a year of law school and several years of working with the National Park Service seasonally, I looked at my life and I said, I really would like to work for the National Park Service. I believe in what they're doing, and so in turn I made an advocation of the National Park Service and the role of the park ranger.
Tom Tschohl spent 23 years working in Sequoia National Park.
As a park ranger in visitor management, my primary role was always one of law enforcement, fire suppression, search and rescue, medical care for people, visitor management, working with the concessions. But what I did career-wise is I took a box and I looked at it and I thought, if you're the district ranger, you're really making your own box.
As the district ranger, Tom took fire ecology seriously, when maybe 20 years ago, he could have gotten away with not being interested in fire. Some of his expertise rests in his ability to cross disciplines. From that perspective, we have much to learn from Tom. For as we all know, external support, whether from inside or outside the Park Service, is crucial for successful fire management programs.
And then there was the political end of it. And you've got to be a realist too. If I were in the superintendent's shoes, perhaps I would have followed the same direction they did. Some superintendents, I think, would step outside the box and say, listen, we have to have a burn program. This is part of a natural cycle. Without it, we're going to put the vegetation at jeopardy. We're going to jeopardize residences, on and on. There were a few, I think, around the Park Service who did that, I gathered. But there were some who, and no disrespect for them, because they were in political positions. And in turn, when you get a call from your U.S. Senator and they tell you, you know, you've got too much smoke coming into this particular community, and what are you going to do about it? You'd probably, if you want any type of a career, better heed their words. And so you jump into suppression. And I found that sometimes unfortunate, but politics is part of life too. Without it, I mean, none of us could be productive, probably. Something can go wrong. But what is life without risks? You've got to accept some risk in life. You get into your car, you could have a traffic accident. You walk across the street, you get hit by a car. You could have a tree fall on you. I walked through, and I thought about this sometimes, I'd walk through the forest, and I thought, you know, one of these limbs from a sequoia could fall on me. And it would kill me because these limbs are 4 or 5 feet in diameter. A tree could fall on me, but it didn't stop me from walking through those trees.
A basic skill every fire manager needs to develop through hard work and related practice is talking to others about complex natural resource issues.
Talk with them, work with them, convince them of their program and the importance of their program, and don't be dismissive and go, well, they already know it, or it's not important for them because they are in such and such a role. Work with them closely so that they are willing to work with you. I'll give you a little lesson plan that I learned from a fellow ranger years back. I used to take my vehicles into the shop to have them work on them routinely, and the auto shop would take my vehicle in the morning at 8 a.m. and I had to drive 20 some miles down to the auto shop. After they looked at the vehicle and the like, I was assuming that they would finish it, and I would leave at 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening and drive up the mountainside with a repaired vehicle. And oftentimes I would find that they weren't worked on. I had to take a broken down vehicle back up the mountainside. One of the other fellows one day brought his vehicle in, and within an hour, even though I had my vehicle in the shop, his vehicle was repaired. And I said, Paul, what is the difference? What is going on here? And he said, Tom, he said, when 10 o'clock coffee comes, he said, I go over to the auto shop This was another ranger. He said, I go sit down with those guys. And he said, I talked to them about some of the rescues and other things that we do. And he said, whenever I bring my vehicle in, because those guys know me, my vehicle is repaired immediately. So my lesson plan is this: work with people, appreciate them.
In this interview, Tom Tschohl spoke of risk-taking, fire as a natural process, politics in fire, and the critical need to be able to talk with others about fire as an ecological process. But one of the hardest messages to communicate was explaining the ecological value of allowing a fire to burn that might eventually burn up something as mighty and grand and ancient as a sequoia tree.
Perhaps that you might destroy a sequoia tree, or that you might have a 300-year-old pine tree that is in perfect mint condition, just majestic, and it could burn up, and convince them the value of that.
Burn up and die.
Burn up and die and just disintegrate, essentially, be a pile of ash. And there were some folks, of course, who would question that and look at it and go, we could turn that into a lot of lumber. And perhaps you could, but you also would deprive the soils of the nutrients from the burn, and in turn the reproductive nutrients needed to bring back the forest that was there.
Imagine that you are practicing having a conversation with people in your local community about the importance of allowing a fire to burn in one of their favorite areas in the park. How would you make the case to these people for allowing the fire to burn? What would be the hardest part about the conversation? What conversational strategies would you use if, at the end of your talk, they still didn't think that the fire should be allowed to burn?